Juvenile court could be on the chopping block in the Nebraska Unicam. One state senator wants to do away with them.
Our Bella Caracta has more tonight from the newsroom. So, Bella, what are some of those arguments for and against this proposal?
Yeah, John, Aaron, some of the concerns expressed today were all about cost for the teens and the court system. Senator Wendy DeBoer introduced LB 1089. DeBoer hopes Nebraska joins multiple states across the country, such as Maryland, Montana, Oklahoma, and Virginia, that have done away with or reduced court fees for youth.
LB 1089 would ensure that court fees and ancillary costs do not operate as a barrier to youths being rehabilitated and moving forward with their life.
Senator Wendy DeBoer argues that the costs don't outweigh the benefits. Her bill would eliminate court costs, probation fees, drug testing costs, and other incidental fees for kids in the system. These fees, she says, pay for things like the judge's retirement fund, legal aid, advocacy, and administrative costs.
As a source of revenue, court fees are not going to keep up with the things that we're asking them to pay for.
According to the Nebraska Judicial Branch website, the court fees for a juvenile are about $70 per case.
When you impose fees, costs, and fines on youth, you're imposing those costs on their future.
That what feels like a ripple to us is a tidal wave to others, and fines and fees have created a disaster in many families, and we can do something now with this bill.
Tim Haruza with the Nebraska State Bar Association opposed the bill's financial component. He made it clear his opposition is not based on the policy of removing fees for juvenile court.
Just to look at that financial piece and make sure that we backfill those lost dollars. I think the court's estimate is a high number of $1.2 million, and the Commission on Public Advocacy's is $100,000 to $125,000 that are important services that are provided that would be affected.
Now, Senator DeBoer said she is willing to examine this bill further and talk about this financial component raised by Haruza. Now, she made it clear this bill would not eliminate fines associated with restitution or paying victims. Reporting live in the newsroom, Bella Caracta, 6 News.
The first